something that, for sure, I know I did when I was an Attorney General, state Attorney General should go after, because gouging is illegal. You cannot take advantage of a crisis to jack up prices in that way. So we encourage local law enforcement to really get on it, because that should not be happen absent some other infrastructure lack that might cause prices to go up.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a test of
Since you oversee the nuclear arsenal, and it's 11 months now with the war in Ukraine, has anything changed in your management, maintenance, and so forth of the nuclear arsenal, given the potential concerns of war and some of the threats that have come from Russia?
Well, it is clear that we are singularly focused at the NNSA of making sure that we have a stockpile that is safe, secure, and effective. And so all of the modernization plans that are happening at the NNSA are pointed in that direction. So it is, we're watching this very carefully, obviously, but people should know that we have incredible relationship with the Department of Defense and incredible professionals who are experts at the NNSA who are focused on making sure that those three things, safe, secure, and effective, are the adjectives that we apply to the stockpile.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming again. It's always good to have you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, just a couple of things and then we'll get going. Thank you, guys. As you saw last night, the President and the First Lady shared their condolences for those killed and injured in the deadly mass shooting in Monterey Park, which is in California, as you all know, this past weekend. The President was briefed early yesterday morning by his Homeland Security Advisor, Liz Sherwood Randall, and directed her to ensure full federal support for local officials responding to the situation. She continued to provide him with updates throughout the day and evening. Our team continues to be in regular contact with law enforcement officials leading the response, and the President has been briefed today on the latest developments. As the President said last night, while there is still much we don't know about this attack, we do know how deeply it has impacted the AAPI community. Monterey Park is home to one of the largest AAPI communities in America, many of whom were celebrating the Lunar New Year along with loved ones and friends this past weekend. But instead of celebrating yesterday, many families in Monterey Park were grieving or praying that their loved one will recover from their wounds. Last night, the President lowered the flags at the White House to half-staff to honor those who lost their lives this weekend. Now, turning on to another piece of news for all of you. As you all saw last week, the State Department launched the Welcome Corps, a new private sponsorship program that will create opportunities for Americans to directly sponsor refugees from around the world arriving through the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. The Welcome Corps is the boldest innovation in U.S. refugee resettlement in 4 decades and will make a meaningful difference in the lives of refugees and Americans alike. The Welcome Corps program is designated to strengthen and expand our country's capacity to resettle refugees by harnessing the energy of private sponsors from all over the United States. Local communities have long been at the heart of America's resettlement program, and we have seen over the past year the overwhelming response of the American people to welcome our Afghan allies, Ukrainians displaced by war, and Venezuelans fleeing violence and oppression. The Welcome Corps builds on this enthusiasm by establishing a durable program for Americans to privately sponsor refugees from around the world. Groups of private sponsors will help refugees find housing and employment, enroll children in school, and connect with other essential services so they can thrive in their new home. The State Department is working with a consortium of nonprofit organizations with expertise in welcoming, resettling, and integrating refugees into U.S. communities to make this program a success. This Welcome Corps team will guide private sponsors through every step of sponsorship journey. Our goal for the program's first year is to mobilize at least 10,000 Americans to step forward as private sponsors and offer a welcoming hand to at least 5,000 refugees. I'm proud to share we're already off to a strong start thanks to the generosity and tremendous support of Americans across the country, nearly 250 diverse organizations representing every sector, national and community-based service organizations, veterans groups, and a wide diversity of faiths have already joined in expressing their support for the program. More than 100,000 people have visited the Welcome Corps website since its launch this past Thursday, and over 10,000 people have signed up for more information. And this week, Director of the Domestic Policy Council, Ambassador Susan Rice, and Principal Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner will host a briefing with stakeholders to discuss the Welcome Corps. President Biden made a commitment to rebuild, enhance, and expand the U.S. refugee admissions program, and the Welcome Corps is one of the many ways in which we are doing this. We encourage anyone who is indeed interested in sponsoring refugees to visit welcomecorps.org to learn more about the program. Finally, we have a preview for some new travel on the President's schedule for next week. Next Monday, the President will travel to Baltimore, Maryland, and next Tuesday, he will travel to New York City to discuss how his economic plan, including his success bringing Republicans, Independents, and Democrats together to pass the bipartisan infrastructure law, is strengthening America's economic competitiveness, creating good-paying jobs, and proving that we can still do big things when we all work together. In Baltimore, the President will discuss how bipartisan infrastructure law funding will replace the 150-year-old Baltimore and Potomac Tunnel, as many of you have probably experienced and gone through during your outing in your cars, to address the largest bottleneck for commuters on the Northeast corridor between Washington, D.C. and New Jersey. In New York City, the President will discuss how bipartisan infrastructure law funding for the Hudson River Tunnel project will improve reliability for the 200,000 passengers trips per day on Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. Both projects will create good-paying jobs, including union jobs, lower commuting times, and enhanced safety. These two critical, important projects funded by the President's bipartisan infrastructure law, much like the Brent Spence Bridge project connecting Ohio and Kentucky that the President visited just a few weeks ago alongside Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, along with thousands of other projects across the country, will make life better for people in communities nationwide. During both visits, the President will also discuss how his economic plan to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out is leading to billions of dollars in private sector investments in Maryland, New York, and across the country. With that, Zeke, you want to kick us off?
Thanks, the President and the Vice President have any plans to visit?
We are going to take our first 2-minute break of this hour, give you another live look of this event that we are waiting on. We've been told that it was going to start around the top of the hour. As you can see, it is running late, but we have it ready for you here live once it does begin. And you also heard Karine touch on it there as well, speaking about President Biden ordering that the flags at the White House, federal buildings, and military posts be flown at half-staff as a mark of respect for the victims of the senseless acts of violence during those celebrations that happened over the weekend. And we also want to provide you an update on this as well. We have learned that an 11th person has died at the hospital after these shootings. So as we wait for more information from officials, we'll continue to monitor any other updates and bring them for you here. But in the meantime, we are going to take that 2-minute break. Waiting on this live event, an update from officials out of Monterey Park. We are going to take you back out to the White House press briefing as reporters are just beginning to ask questions there. We'll bring you out to it now here on Live Now from Fox.
Baltimore, the president will discuss how bipartisan infrastructure law funding will replace the 150-year-old Baltimore and Potomac Tunnel, as many of you have probably experienced and gone through during your outing in your cars, to address the largest bottleneck for commuters on the northeast corridor between Washington, D.C. and New Jersey. In New York City, the president will discuss how bipartisan infrastructure law funding for the Hudson River Tunnel project will improve reliability for the 200,000 passengers trips per day on Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. Both projects will create good-paying jobs, including union jobs, lower commuting times, and enhanced safety. These two critical, important projects funded by the president's bipartisan infrastructure law, much like the Brent Spence Bridge project connecting Ohio and Kentucky that the president also discuss how his economic plan to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out is leading to billions of dollars in private sector investments in Maryland, New York, and across the country. With that, Zeke, you want to kick us off?
Thanks, the president and the vice president have any plans to visit the community of Monterey Park around this weekend? Sure.
No, it's a good question. Don't have anything to share at this time on any travel to California, specifically Monterey Park at this time. But if that changes, certainly we will share that with all of you.
And then over the weekend, there was a reporting that Ron Klain will be stepping down as chief of staff, being replaced by Jeff Zients. Can you confirm that, and when will that change or will it be effective?
So look, I know many of you have a lot of questions on this. I know that you might have a lot of questions today on this particular story. Don't have anything to preview or share or announce at this time. I do want to take just a personal point of personal privilege, as when the president was senator would say. Look, Ron has been an incredible boss. He is someone that I've enjoyed working with every day. And many of us, and I think all of us here, are a part of the Claniacs. If you don't know, I would suggest you go on Twitter and find out what the Claniacs are. But he has been an incredible leader, an incredible boss, as I just stated. And we credit the president, as we should, for the impressive legislative successes, historic successes that the president has had the first 2 years. But in part, it was because of Ron's leadership, incredible leadership, that we were able to get that done. So again, don't have anything to share with you all today on this front, but again, Ron has been an incredible leader these past 2 years.
Just an out of context praise for Ron. And then I'll let my colleagues follow up on that one. And then finally,
feel free. I'm sure they won't be shy to follow up.
On the FBI search of the president's home on Friday, the president, when the initial batch of documents were reported a couple of weeks ago, said he was surprised that there were classified documents found at the Penn Biden Center. Was he surprised that there was classified material found at his home on Friday, as well as the prior discovery at his house a few weeks ago?
So, look, again, there's going to be a lot of questions on this. I know my colleagues from the White House counsel's office has been pretty diligent on taking questions these last couple of days. There's going to be a call in less than an hour or so from my White House counsel office. And look, they're going to answer the questions from here. Any specifics to the Department of Justice, any specifics to this particular legal matter, I would refer you to the Department of Justice. I'm going to continue to be prudent from here. I'm going to continue to be consistent and make sure that those questions go to my colleagues in the White House counsel's office.
Another question on the documents. You have said, though, from this podium many, many times over the last 2 weeks that this president takes the handling of classified material very seriously. And yet we continue to learn about more documents being found and discovered at his home, including now some that go back decades to his time in the Senate. So why should the American people believe that this president takes classified material seriously and the handling of it?
Look, the American people heard from the president directly on this when he was asked by your colleagues at least twice now about about how he sees this process. And he was very clear with the response of what we're currently seeing. And he says, I take this very seriously. He said, I didn't know that the documents were there. And look, I think as it relates to the American people and the president standing with the American people, it is going to be up to them to decide how they see this president. Look, this is a president that came into office, 9 million people had lost their jobs. The unemployment rate was 6.3%, and hundreds of thousands of small businesses had closed their doors. And in the past 2 years, we've created nearly 11 million jobs. The unemployment rate is at a record low at 50-year record low. In the last 2 years were the best years for small businesses applications on record. We talked about that last week, just from here. The president has built the most significant legislative record since LBJ. Let's not forget, there's a CHIPS and Science Act, the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. I just walked through what he's going to see next week when he's traveling to Baltimore and also New York City. The Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to deal with lowering costs. So the president has been in office for the last 2 years focusing on the American people. And, you know, we saw that. We saw what the American people had to say during the midterms. As it relates, again, as it relates to this, as it relates to this ongoing legal matter, I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House Counsel. Again, they're going to be speaking with all of you in just you know, less than an hour or so.
But I do want to ask one more time, because you have been the one messaging that he takes this seriously. You have also been saying over and over again that you are cooperating fully with this investigation.
That hasn't changed, Mary.
But given that, why then did it take several searches and the FBI coming in to uncover the full extent of the documents?
I understand your question. I've said many times, the president has said many times, he takes this very seriously. You've heard directly from him. You just said that his team is cooperating fully. And just want to add, you know, and you heard from his team that the FBI was invited into the president's home. I'm not going to go beyond that. That was in the statement that was released on Saturday. Again, these are questions that have been answered that have been answered from here. That has been answered for my colleagues. Anything else? My colleague's going to speak to all of you in just a few minutes, a few moments, and you can ask more intel and detailed
one thing that you just said. You just said the president said that he did not know the documents were there. I'm not actually sure he has said that clearly. Are you saying the president did not know?
Well, he said he was surprised. He said he was surprised.
Any of the documents?
He said he was surprised. I'm just going to leave it there, and I'm going to refer you to the White House counsel's office. I'm just repeating what he said, and he said...
You said he did not know the documents were there.
He said he was surprised that the documents were there. He said that, and that he takes this very seriously. That's what I want to make sure that the American people understand, and I just refer...
American people might question that, given that you keep every few days it seems we are finding that more documents have been found at his house.
What I'm telling you is what the president has said, which is he takes this very seriously. I will refer you to detailed explanations from statements that have come from his personal lawyer. Again, anything further on this, my colleague is going to be taking your questions, Mary. In the 4 o'clock hour, I would refer you to them. Okay.
Has Ron Klain told the president that he's leaving, planning to leave?
Don't have anything further to share. And just to be very clear, Ron Klain is still very much the chief of staff. He is still here with us. Just don't have anything to share.
Does the president think Jeff Zients would be a good chief of staff?
Steve Holland, do you want to be chief of staff? I think I hear a name. Someone just called you out as potential chief of staff material.
This popped up on Friday. When will Speaker McCarthy visit President Biden?
So don't have a meeting to share at this with all of you at this time. The president is looking forward to sitting down with Speaker McCarthy to talk about an array of issues. And this is normal, right? During a new Congress, it is normal for the president to sit down with the speaker to talk about how they can work together. You heard the president say this right after the midterms, how he wants to work in a bipartisan way with members of Congress to continue to deliver on the successes that he has had this first 2 years in good faith. He wants to do this in good faith. So once there's a meeting locked in, we certainly will share that with all of you. Go ahead, Phil.
Thanks, Corinne. On the debt limit, Senator Manchin today called the White House position on no negotiations or not responsible. Yesterday, I think you called it a mistake. I understand where your position is. Is there any concern that Democrats not siding with that position could undercut the effort you guys are trying to put into place over the next 4 months?
So just let me, look, lowering the deficit has always been a top priority for this president. As you know, he's lowered the deficit in record fashion at $1.7 trillion under his presidency.
No, like so
and he has said, he's always said, he is happy to talk to anyone who wants to deal with that in a responsible way. But preventing default is a separate matter. That is a separate matter within itself. It is a basic responsibility for Congress. We've said this over and over and again, and I'll continue to say this. And it's a responsibility that Congress has to the American people. And so it must be done without conditions, even as they've pushed for tax giveaways to the rich. Republicans want to cut Social Security. They want to cut Medicare and other critical programs. And let's not forget, these critical programs have already been paid into. These are programs for veterans, for seniors, and taxpayers. This is what they're talking about taking away from these really critical programs for critical groups here. So President Biden will never allow Republicans to cut benefits that our hardworking Americans have earned. This is what they have earned. So, but I'll also note, as it relates to Senator Manchin and to your question, Phil, he agreed on the need to protect Social Security. He agreed on the need to protect Medicare and called on Republicans to take cuts to those programs off. This is, quote, off the board right now. And so just want to make that very, very clear as well.
Are you actively asking Democrats not to break ranks on this issue?
We've been very clear. I mean, look, we've been very public about this. You guys have all covered what we have said from here about how we see this process moving forward. It should be done without conditions. This is something that has been done 78 times when we were talking about lifting the debt ceiling in the past, since 1960. I believe this is not unusual. It's done 3 times in the past administration under Donald Trump. So this is nothing unusual. This is something that should be done without conditions, and we should not be taking hostage key programs that the American people really earned and care about. Social Security, Medicare, it should not be put into a hostage situation. And again, the president's going to continue to fight for those programs, and we're going to be very clear about how we see how Congress should move forward. Okay.
Thanks, Green. The president said last week that he has no regrets when it comes to the handling of classified documents. Why doesn't he have regrets, given that classified documents keep turning up?
I talked about this last week. I'm not going to go beyond what the president said. Again, I would refer you to the White House counsel for anything further on this legal matter. Again, I spoke to this yesterday. I'm just not last week. Pardon me, last Friday. I'm just not going to go beyond what the president.
That's not a legal question. It's about his statement from last week.
I understand, and I said I'm not going to go beyond what the president said, and I think it speaks for itself. I'm not going to go into what he meant or didn't meant. He laid it out. He said it to all of you when he was out I believe in California, when he answered one of your colleagues' question or when he addressed this particular matter. I'm just not going to go into what he meant or didn't mean.
But going back to what Mary was asking, when the president says that he takes classified material and the handling of it very seriously, this weekend, top Senate Democrats who have known him for decades described this situation as unacceptable and completely irresponsible. What's the disconnect here?
They also said, if I may add, that the president is handling this in the appropriate fashion, that the president and his team has been completely complying completely with the investigation. They also said that. And so I will leave it up to their comments up to them. I'm not going to go beyond what they have said, but they also said that piece too, and I think it's important to note that they believe that the president has handled this properly as well.
Who's paying the president's private attorney on this matter?
I mean, it's his private attorney. So I would leave it. I would just say it's his private attorney. Any questions, anything in particular to this, I would ask the White House counsel office.
We've asked his private attorney at least 4 times, and they haven't given us an answer. Don't we deserve to know whether he's paying for it or
I hear you. No, I totally understand, Nancy. My colleague is going to be speaking to you momentarily. You can ask that question in that conversation, on the record conversation with all of you. Okay.
On Friday when we were here, you were asked about the president going to Rehoboth and if that had anything to do with searches. and you declined to answer that. Did you know Friday there was a search going on at the president's home?
So I'll say this, and I think I said this on Friday as well. They go to Delaware almost every weekend. We put out guidance last Monday, as you know, Monday night, that they would be spending the weekend in Rehoboth. So it was indeed pre-planned. So just want to put that out there. And I'll just, mention what was said in the statement just on Saturday, which is the DOJ requested that the search not be made public in advance, in line with its standard procedures, and we did adhere to that. As you could understand, that is something that we are going to take very seriously, and it was again a request from DOJ for us to make sure that we did not make that public in advance.
Should we anticipate other searches are possible?
That part I would definitely refer you to the White House counsel's office.
More broadly, given the fact that classified documents and their handling have been an issue, has the White House counsel put out any guidance to staff members here who have the opportunity to interact with classified materials to just reaffirm how that should be done? Or has there been any follow-up on proper procedures for staffers, not the president, not this circumstance?
Yeah. No, I understand the question. Again, you're going to have an opportunity to ask that very question to the White House counsel's office about if they're going to, what's their next steps as it relates to staff. That's something that's better for them to answer, and they'll be speaking to all of you momentarily.
I wanted to ask about the president of Turkey today said that he would not support Sweden's bid to join NATO. Obviously, the U.S. supports that. Is there concern that that bid could fall through?
So just a couple of things that I want to make sure. I want to echo the comments of the Swedish Prime Minister, who said burning books that are holy to many is a deeply respectful act, and what is legal is not necessarily appropriate. As we have said before, Finland and Sweden are ready to be NATO allies. Both are members of NATO's Partnership for Peace and NATO's Enhanced Opportunities Partnership. Their militaries work seamlessly with alliance forces. Finland and Sweden have already taken concrete steps, to fulfill the commitments they made under the trilateral memorandum of agreement with Turkey, signed on the margins of the NATO summit in Madrid, including substantially strengthening their bilateral cooperation with Turkey on key security concerns. We continue to expect that NATO will formally welcome Finland and Sweden as members. This will enhance their security as well as that of the...
It looks like that update out of California is beginning right now. We're going to bring it to you here live on Live Now from Fox.
Families and what is being done to make sure that they can get through this process. And we have been supported by so many people across the nation. In fact, I just had a phone call with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, who expressed their condolences for what happened and will be expressing their condolences to the victims. But we also have the honor of having Senator Alex Padilla here, who delayed his trip to Washington, D.C. just so that he could be here with us. So, Senator, if you could please say a few words.
Thank you, Congresswoman Chu. I want to thank Chief Fleece, the Congresswoman, Supervisor Solis, and frankly, all the city, community, and regional leaders that responded so quickly after the tragedies of Saturday night. It's important to be here today to walk through this resource center for families and friends of the victims and frankly the community at large, because it's going to take a lot and it's going to take some time, but we know that the community is resilient and the community will rebound. We are committed to working together not just to support the families and support the community, but to once again use this reminder of the epidemic of gun violence in America. While there's still a lot that we are learning about these particular cases, we won't jump to all the conclusions. We'll let the investigations and legal processes run their course. We do take it as a reminder of the urgency with which we need to strengthen our gun safety laws across the country. Many of my colleagues have pointed out, doesn't California have some of the strictest laws and protections of any state in the nation? And that is true. And they have worked, and it is helpful. But when there's a patchwork of laws and protections to various degrees across states, then clearly there are vulnerabilities that can impact any community in the country. And so for the individuals in the community here in Monterey Park, throughout the region and throughout the country that are living in slightly more fear today because of what's been witnessed, this is a reminder that more needs to be done. Two final things. One, not another minute should go by without once again expressing our condolences and our prayers to the families of the victims and of the survivors and the community at large. They should take heart in seeing their community leadership respond so quickly and work so well together. And last but not least, to call attention to some good news. Earlier this year, last year, Congress actually came together on a bipartisan basis. Representative Chu on the House side, myself on the Senate side, when we passed the Safer Communities Act, which does bring additional resources for mental health, does bring additional resources for crisis response for incidents like this. So it's part of our recognition that communities will need that support, not just in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy, but for the long term. But more needs to be done, whether it's on reducing the types of weapons that are found in communities across the country, access to those weapons, even when it's lawful. We cannot let mass shootings be the norm, not here in Monterey Park, not in California, not anywhere in the United States of America. And with that, let me introduce my friend and colleague, Los Angeles County Supervisor Hilda Solis.
Thank you for coming here this afternoon. I want to thank the City of Monterey Park and expressly give my thanks to all the public safety personnel, all our LA County Mental Health, OEM, Office of Emergency Management, including the Governor's Office, as well as our friends in the federal government, FBI, and everyone that's been helping us go through this in the last couple of days. But I also want to be reminded that there are some special things to be thankful for. The community has come together. Many people are coming forward to provide initial support to many of our AAPI residents, many who are right now in solace and witnessing things that are unheard of. We know we have a lot of healing to do. The LA County will be here. Our mental health services are here on the ground, Office of Emergency Management, as well as our Red Cross, as well as our other secondary agencies. And again, I want to thank the City of Monterey Park. This senior center here stands as a symbol of welcoming for all immigrants. That's how I came to learn this community, welcoming everyone. And it continues to be resilient. It continually will be doing that as we begin to heal, and we have much more to do. We also have some heroes. The young man that now many of us know helped to stop further shootings from occurring in Alhambra. That young man is a hero in the San Gabriel Valley, representing Alhambra. Those are things that we should also reflect on. In spite of someone's senseless motivations to try to kill people or shoot people, this individual did what many would probably never be able to do or imagine, but he saved so many more lives. So let's also think about that as we go through this process. Let us also, through the next few days, remember the families that have lost loved ones, as well as those that are recovering right now. And I thank all our emergency medical staff, our teams, our hospitals, everyone that has played a big role in this whole activity that has been occurring right before our very own eyes. So thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to...
Do you want to do it in Spanish?
Anybody in our group here? I know this is kind of impromptu, so...
Maybe he could say some words in Spanish.
Okay, and then I'm going to have Matt talk about the center itself. Okay. There you
go. But just briefly in Spanish, and then we'll hear more from the experts here on the center behind us. Brevemente en español, estamos aquí unidos con la comunidad de Estamos aquí, todos los líderes de la región, unidos, apoyando la comunidad de Monterey Park. Debido a la tragedia de este fin de semana, ofrecemos nuestros pensamientos, nuestras oraciones a las familias impactadas, a la comunidad en total, no solo aquí en Monterey Park, pero en comunidades similares en todas áreas del país, porque merecemos mejor que vivir en temor de violencia, de armas. Hay mucho que no sabemos todavía sobre los incidentes, las investigaciones siguen, pero lo que podemos contar es que nuestro apoyo no solo es.
As officials recap things there in Spanish, we want to again just go over what we know about this deadly mass shooting that happened over the weekend. The most recent news from this morning is that the hospital has confirmed an 11th person has died at the hospital. 10 people were already announced. The announcement came that they had died earlier over the weekend. 5 women and 5 men who were killed. It looks like they're about to speak again in English here, so let's listen back in here.
And that's going to be the first talk when I go in. How are we going to have this dialogue with our students? I know that many of our students are going to be coming from many different angles and places, but we just toured the Langley Center, and I was very proud of the work that they're doing in here to provide services for our community. Very proud of that. Tomorrow we're having a vigil here in front of the City Hall at 5:30, and I invite you guys to come out. I know that a lot of our community is coming together to bridge and it's a lot. It's very emotional for me as well because I live here. I have 3 daughters, and I know a lot of us were at the festival, at the Lunar New Year festival, right just before this happened. But I'm so hopeful of how the community has come together. I'm very hopeful of how we're going to recover, and I know we will recover and we'll come out stronger. Thank you.
And first of all, from the fire department of the city.
I just turned it off. Let me turn it on. Can you hear me? Okay, my name is Matt Halleck. I'm here in the city of Monterey Park. First and foremost, I just want to express my sincere condolences and prayers to the families of those affected, those impacted. This will be a lasting recovery, but as indicated by Supervisor Solis, the center behind me is a senior center here in the city of Monterey Park, but immediately following the aftermath of the incident, it was quickly realized that we needed to set up a resource center for those that were impacted by this tragic event. And so we started the ball rolling on how are we going to set this up, how are we going to stand this up, and get those resources available immediately following this incident. So we partnered with several different agencies to make that happen here in the city of Monterey Park. And I just want to identify those partners because without those partners, this resource center would not be as functioning as it is right now and providing those critical resources, whether it be physical help, mental help, consolation, any type of resources that are needed to deal with the aftermath of such a tragic event. Some of those partners that we are relying on, not only just here in the city, is Los Angeles County Office of Emergency Management, the LA County Department of Mental Health, Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office Multi-Casualty Incident Support Team, the Los Angeles City Crisis Response Team, the American Red Cross, the FBI Victims Specialist Team, the Tu-Chi Foundation, along with the Chinese Consulate. They're all on site. They're all here. What we're doing is, as victims come in, as people that come in related to the incident or not, or seeking any type of support, we capture them at the beginning at the front of the entrance to this facility. We identify what their needs are, and then we take them to the appropriate room, whether it be victim identification, whether it be notification of next of kin, whether it be mental support for somebody who witnessed this tragic event. We identify where they need to go and to the appropriate resource for them. To this point, we've had a total of 6 families have come through the facility to seek that support, and we'll continue to maintain this facility for as long as needed to provide the community the much needed support they're going to need to get through this difficult time. Some logistics on this center. We're going to have it open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Every day of the week until we feel that the community no longer needs that support. For those that are watching at home and don't know the location, the address for this facility is 400 West Emerson. The phone numbers you can contact for additional information are 211 from your cell phone or landline, as well as area code 626-307-1388. I'm going to stay here along with Chief Weiss. We'll be happy to answer any questions regarding our response, both from police and fire, for this incident. We're not going to talk about the investigation as it's ongoing, but we're certainly happy to discuss our response during the incident, after the incident, and what we anticipate in the days moving forward. We're in contact as much as we can, but given the nature of the incident, information is limited. And so we're doing our best to get updates on the condition of those that were transported to our local area hospitals. I don't have that information current as of now. Yeah, absolutely. The LA County District Attorney's Office support team is the resource to provide the community with any type of financial assistance for those that were impacted, indicating things you indicated, such as costs associated with recovery. Those will all come from the LA County District Attorney's Office. Correct. Correct.
Right. A great question. Officer wellness at this point is my #1 concern. So I had 6 to 8 officers on duty last night, and when they returned to duty, we kind of wrapped our arms around them in briefing. We brought in professionals from the counseling team and ultimately sent them home. They weren't emotionally ready to come back to what they left. And we will continue to provide them with support. I want them to have long careers. I want them to be whole. And the only way to do that is to talk about what they saw, the trauma they saw, and let them know that there are other people that are in their shoes and that they can recover from this. And that's what I'm doing. That's one of my biggest concerns right now. And I'm doing it with every single person that was on duty, whether they're in dispatch, whether they were out in the field. That's who I'm concentrating on right now. No, the timeline is still, I haven't reviewed any body-worn camera or anything like that. That's all part of the evidentiary process. I'm not at that point. At some point, I will conduct a debriefing with everybody present because we learn from those things. And I haven't gotten there yet. I've talked to them individually about what they saw and how they handled it, but that's about it.
Has your department ever had an interaction with this individual who was responsible?
Not that I'm aware of, no. That's part of the criminal investigation, and quite honestly, I believe they're still looking into that, and I would refer that to the 2:30 conference today with the sheriff. I'll be there, but Sheriff Luna is going to talk about what they may have discovered within the last 12 or 14 hours. I don't know. Honestly, I do not know. Well, I think we all want to find out why. We all want answers to questions that we may never have answers to. That's kind of the enigma of this. I know that my individual officers would like to know why. I know the families want to know why. The why is a big part of this. The problem is we may never know the why, and we have to work past that. Yeah, they leave behind a note. I don't know if he did that or not. And quite honestly, I haven't been briefed yet about what they found during the executed search warrants. At some point, we'll probably have a fragmented why, but I don't know if we'll ever have the full story. Yes. The investigation, I mean, everybody's learned over the years that just because the suspect dies doesn't mean the investigation stops. We will conduct it as if it's a regular criminal investigation. That's the way these things work. We're all about transparency. The public wants answers. You want answers. I want answers. And that will only come from an investigation. Everybody involved. Yes, sir. At the Hall of Justice, Sheriff Luna is going to do a 2:30 press conference. Downtown. Yeah, not here. I'm going to go over there. I know. I wish. Most of the people you saw yesterday, so I believe federal partners, it's focused on the investigation and what they've determined, what they've learned from the search warrants and the other stuff they're at now. But he wants to do it downtown, so it's easier to move me there than it is to move that here, I guess. So, last question, please. There was. We investigated that, and we're looking into that. There hasn't been any. It's always a concern of ours. We're prepared if anything were to happen, and we take each of those threats on a local level very seriously. My investigators are professionals, and they take it very seriously. So we haven't had any, but it's always in the back of our mind. We're always prepared for that. All right. 11. There are 11 people have died because of this incident so far. So, not counting the suspect. I'm not counting him. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Thank you for coming out.
Excuse me, Rombo, City Manager for Monterey Park. Is there anyone here that is from any other newspaper